to work expeditiously and sometimes burn the midnight oil to bring us and process certain matters that are of an urgent nature. You know, over time, it's easy for somebody to think and say, why hasn't the committee given us a report? We have not concluded on reading, and so on and so forth, Mr. Speaker. But the thing that I have learned from experience over the years, Mr. Speaker, is that money issues are not the issues that we agree on so easily. And so you find yourself on many occasions that we end up agreeing actually on the last minute and saying, okay, we finally have a deal, let's go and pass it as is. That's why, unlike all the other bills that come before this House, Mr. Speaker, this one, and like others also of the Finance Committee, are being brought, first of all, late, but also, secondly, in a hurried and maybe sometimes even not yet fully ripe, if I may use that word, for processing before the House, Mr. Speaker. But in strict reading of our standing orders, it's not a must for us to have that particular report to inform our debate, because the debate is informed by the bill itself, not the report that we get. It is during third reading, when you get the justification from the committee report of why they are proposing certain amendments, that you can rise and say, because we don't debate, but we give justifications or dissatisfaction with certain proposed amendments during third reading, and say, Mr. Speaker, I don't agree with this particular change to the clause because of ABCD, and you sit down. Or somebody rises and say, I've seen the justification on the report. The reason why we are proposing this amendment is because of ABCD. That holds true for the people that I represent in this House, and therefore I support that particular amendment, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I want to urge colleague senators who are in the House to read the contents of this bill. This is perhaps one of the most important businesses that the Senate gets to transact each and every financial year. It's important, Mr. Speaker, that we play some history, how we ended up with this particular bill, Mr. Speaker. You know, previously, we used to carry conditional and unconditional grants as part of the annual Dora and Kara bill, Mr. Speaker. But there have been litigations in court and people not agreeing. Because, you know, Mr. Speaker, the history of conditional and unconditional grants began around 2015, when it was realized that about 5 counties, and part of them are still actually beneficiaries, even in this particular bill today, that absolutely had nowhere that they could call a county headquarters. And therefore, the decision was made at our committee then to give them an unconditional grant for them to build their county headquarters. I know of Nyandarua, where Senator Methu comes from, and I think 4 other counties, Tharaka Nithi, and I can't remember which other one, Mr. Speaker. And over the years, they have been getting resources over and above what we share and distribute outside of the revenue formula, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, over the subsequent years, the so-called treasury mandarins and the deep states and the systems found a way of securing projects and other, what you may call, sweeteners to certain well-connected counties and passing it before both houses of parliament and passing for it as either a conditional or unconditional grant. That you'll find a particular project has been stated, yet a keen look at it will ensure that we'll actually have noted that on most occasions, it's the same counties that were always benefiting from these conditional and unconditional grants. The thing that was even more worrying is that there was no proposed formula for distribution of these projects. It rested upon the feelings of the cabinet secretary or treasury. And therefore, people started being concerned and said, we need to find a mechanism upon which conditional and unconditional grants will be sent out to all the 47 county governments, Mr. Speaker. And after lengthy drawn court battles, this decision was arrived at. And therefore, this is the first bill, Mr. Speaker, that you are considering under additional allocations to our county government over and above that which we distribute. And there is good justification, Mr. Speaker. There are unique circumstances that end up giving us, you know, there are donor-funded projects, Mr. Speaker, that for one reason or the other, like today I know Bill Gates was meeting the Council of Governors. Based on whatever grants or or giftings they may want to give to certain county governments, if some of those are by way of loans that are being advanced to counties, if they are meeting, say, the donor community, Mr. Speaker, that is just one such example, then there is good reason and justification for us as a Senate to agree to a particular formula, to agree to a particular distribution that does not leave or disenfranchise certain counties over others, Mr. Speaker. And I appreciate the work that this committee has done. I know they have not reached an agreement with the Treasury, and that's why perhaps part of the report is not here. But I strongly believe that by Tuesday, when you are likely to conclude on the third reading of this bill, they will give us the justifications for the amendments that they want us to separate between actually this one and the equalization fund, because that's part of the proposal that is coming, that treat it even separately, Mr. Speaker. When we get that justification and we get to read the report, then we will begin to appreciate and understand the genius and the importance of this particular bill, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate, and colleagues senators need to go actually through the column of, in the appendices of the bill, Mr. Speaker, in the third schedule of the bill, of what is due to their counties in the equalization fund, and also what is due as additional allocations to their counties under Appendix 3. For example, Mr. Speaker, Kericho, the county that I represent, for the last 2 financial years, hasn't been able to access close to 700 million Kenya shillings. That's a lot of money, Mr. Speaker. That is money. I think Narok is county number 33. If you look at Narok, it should be somewhere in excess of $1 billion, actually, if you add all the columns from column A all the way to column M. It's a lot of money that your county has missed out on, Senator Ledama. And that's why we need to be in this house. That's why earlier we were saying we cannot understand where colleagues are when you're doing some of these matters. You need to speak and see, look, read the column and appreciate why our county governors, and you know, on many occasions we don't agree with our governors, but there are certain things when they say, senators, you're delaying us. This is one of the things that I agree with them and say we should have done better. 700 million in a county like Kericho can change lives. Means a lot of money. 1 billion shillings in Narok. I'm sure Nairobi, the figure could even be way bigger. Mombasa, and all these counties that are represented here. It's a lot of money, Mr. Speaker. And we need to agree. The beauty is that the information that we have and the presentation from Treasury is that this money is in existence. It is actually in the CRF account of many of these counties, only awaiting the provident legislation, which is here for counties to be able to access these particular monies. So I appreciate the good work that colleague senators have done. I want to emphasize that if possible, we push through and ensure that we conclude on second reading today. By Tuesday, when this House resumes on Tuesday next week, Mr. Speaker, I want to believe the committee will be ready with their report so that we proceed to third reading and send the message to the National Assembly. The 2 weeks that they have should actually be sufficient for them to conclude on this particular bill, so that by the time we are breaking for December holidays, counties are able to access these funds, Mr. Speaker. You know, citizens are beginning to get restless. I have seen governors, citizens are beginning to ask them questions and say, why are you taking too long? You promised so many things. We need drugs in our hospitals. We need better roads. We need ECD classrooms and all those devolved functions that many of our county governors promised. If you go to many of the towns, some of these conditional grants are actually under the NIDA projects and Kenya Urban Support Program. It's even for simple projects such as repairing town roads and ensuring that our towns are well maintained. If you go to many of our towns, especially those that are outside of Nairobi, but even Nairobi, I've seen the same problem. You find that many of those roads are dilapidated, especially those that are maintained by the county governments, because they have not been able to access these funds. Therefore, there's good justification, Mr. Speaker, why we need to process this bill, but I appreciate the struggle that has gone there. For me, even over and above the 700 million that Kericho is going to get, is the fact that Senate stood firm. If you read the report of the Budget and Finance Committee, all through from 2015, when we did the first conditional grant, up to 2021, we kept on making a request or a resolution as a committee that Treasury needs to provide a formula upon which they decide on the conditional and unconditional grants to each of the counties. We spoke, we made noise about it, until finally the courts also came to our rescue as a Senate and insisted that no more release of this fund. So there, despite the fact that there has been delay for 2 years and counties haven't been able to access these funds, Mr. Speaker, it is for good reason. Many of over 40 counties will never have accessed this money if it had been left to be donated like cookies by the Treasury. Today, if you like a certain county government, you give them. If they vote for you, if they didn't vote for you, you deny them. That's what was happening. But because of this law and because of the Senate standing firm through its Budget and Finance Committee, all the 47 county governments are assured of an equal distribution of conditional and unconditional grants, Mr. Speaker. And that's the genius in this bill. And that's the spirit and the principle that I celebrate as we pass this particular bill, Mr. Speaker. I know colleague senators actually have a lot to say and would wish to say many on this particular bill. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I rest my case at that particular point and celebrate the Committee of Budget and Finance for our work well done. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Senator Andy Okech, Gicheru.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, once again. I think that this is actually the most important bill, as has been echoed by my brother, the Majority Leader, Senator Aron, because if this bill should succeed, then it means that we are going to help our counties get something between 34 billion to 37 billion in addition to what they already get. But first of all, Mr. Speaker, through your honor, may I take this opportunity to actually thank the Committee on Budget and Finance, led by our able chair, me being a member of that committee, Senator Ali Roba, for a work well done. I think that this has been one of the busiest committees in these past 2 weeks, and very, very, excuse me, and very committed leadership of the chair has led us to actually engage the stakeholders that